It's 12 o'clock in Frisco, Texas, and it's time for Smoker Broker Radio with Robert Mesh, a.k.a. the Smoker Broker. Robert is the owner of Small World Realty and has employed hundreds of real estate agents in his 17-year career. He has instructed and mentored over 10,000 real estate agents at the highly acclaimed Champions School of Real Estate and is considered an expert in Texas residential realty. Robert is also an advocate of true entrepreneurial spirit and has helped many to transition from corporate America into the world of self-employment. And now live from the studio to your world, the Smoker Broker.
Hey, welcome to Smoker Broker. I'm Robert Mesh, and I am the guy they call the Smoker Broker. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not too excited about the connection I have. So if I start fading out or if I start just kind of freezing, Brent's going to take over for me here. So he's going to let me know. But the thing keeps a little bit stuttering here. So I got a feeling I'm going to have to cut out and come back in. So I apologize if you see that. I'm at the office today. Normally I'm at my home office, and I get a little bit of a better connection in there. So that's my bad. Happy Thursday. Hope everybody's doing well, continuing to learn in a new world. Day to day, everything changes. COVID continues to be the primary discussion for us and business, which is why we always start off our show with that particular conversation, because it does affect the business that we do. We are affected by COVID. Everybody's affected by COVID from a health perspective and a business perspective. So we almost have to discuss it each week as an update as to where we are. So it is interesting news this week, or actually in the last couple of days. We are finding out that they are potentially close to the vaccine being released earlier than later. Continues to be a political conversation, whether it's ready or not. And we're certainly not here to discuss that, but we certainly are here to discuss the probability that what if they do have an actual a vaccine? What if they do have a vaccine? Brent, can you do me a favor and send David the link? I forgot to give him that. That's my bad. That's why he's having trouble. Go ahead and respond to him on that text there. So they're discussing now, do we have a vaccine? Is the vaccine ready? And that becomes the new conversation. It does appear that we do have a vaccine that potentially is ready to be distributed, but whether it's actually viable or not, that's going to be a conversation.
I ain't putting that in myself.
What's that?
I'm not shooting that into myself yet.
Well, I was just about to say, that's the next thing. How many people are going to say, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take it, and trusting the fact that it's been tested a long enough time in a certain enough amount of people to rely on it. And I think that's going to be the next conversation that we all have. But one thing's for sure, it does bring a little bit of hope in. It brings a little bit of hope that maybe they have figured out something about this virus, that they can at least push it back some, push it out away completely from some people. I mean, let's face it, we've had a flu vaccine for what? God knows how long. It's not perfect.
Nope.
People still die from the flu. In fact, once again, a lot more people die from the flu than they've ever died from corona. So it's not a perfect antidote for anything, but it certainly might put the brakes on the troubles that we're seeing. And it might just be enough to get us to start walking around a little bit more than we normally have and to try to experience somewhat of the life we've been leading up to this point. So that was exciting. I don't know if you say it's exciting, but that was news. That's news this week. And it's news, whether it's ready for the end of October, whether it's ready for November, December, how do they keep tweaking it? How much can they get out? Who gets it? And these are conversations that are going to center around everything that we do for the next probably 6 months to a year, maybe even longer than that. So constant new information that comes through. It does seem to be that the virus is slowing a little bit. And I don't think that's anything to celebrate. It's still terrible, but it does seem to be reaching somewhat of a peak. I read this morning that they believe we're peaking here in the United States, but unfortunately, in India, I heard it's now running rampant, which is interesting. Why is India the last one to have rampant issues? You would think they'd be the first.
They might just be catching up on testing too, though. Because they're number two.
I've heard that same thing. I have a neighbor. We have a couple of neighbors from India, And he was telling me the other day that several of his friends have come down with COVID in India. It's just running rampant.
Yeah, it makes you wonder whether they're just not as strong with the
Yeah.
reporting as we have been. It took us a while too.
It did.
So, we continue to point to the positives in COVID. You got to try to find some type of positive in there. And it does appear that the countries that were really beaten down by this in the earlier part of the year, where this stuff came from, they appear to be doing okay. China appears to have some control over this. Italy seems to be doing better. Common sense would dictate that we should be on the same path here. And they're doing that without a vaccine. So it begs to question, if they can control it even without the vaccine, how much stronger are we once we get the vaccine in? So there are some good things on the horizon. With that said, I still had friends this week telling me they lost someone because of the virus. And that's a struggle. It's a struggle to sit there and say things are going to be better and things are on the mend when you still have people that are close to you saying, yeah, I lost my mom this past week, or I lost my dad. Now, again, we're not going to get into political conversations. I'll use someone that was in the news this morning as the point I'm trying to make. Tom Seaver, the old Met great, he passed away yesterday. And it was deemed that he passed away because of the coronavirus. That's what it was tagged. But, those who know Tom struggled with Alzheimer's for the last 5 to 10 years. And there's been a lot of studies that have suggested that is one of the diseases that is very suspect to corona. Now, I'm not saying I'm not saying he didn't die because of coronavirus. He did have a really strong condition that probably played a little bit of a part in that too. So this is the conversation we keep having. I mean, these death counts, are they really COVID related, or are they underlying conditions that push this person to a point that they were already going to? That's very hard. David?
Yeah, here's another thing too that I've experienced in my own family. So I think I shared this a few weeks ago. My brother and sister-in-law both had COVID. Okay, and they were pretty sick for a good 2 weeks, and he had to, they had to quarantine before he went back to work. He's a technician for AT&T.
Yeah.
Well, so I have a first cousin whose her oldest daughter and son-in-law recently had COVID, and they're about 10 years younger than my brother and his wife, and theirs was very less severe, but they were both tested positive twice.
Yeah.
So there's that age factor too, potentially that can make a difference.
Yeah, I had a couple of friends that live in the same house. One was my age, the other one was closer to Brent's age, and the Brent's age guy, mild fever, done the next day. My guy, down on his knees, repeating to himself all night, I'm not going to die. So a tale of two different people that were in the same house. So
that's right. Yeah.
It's hard to grasp a hold of how this thing works, how it mitigates, and what it's doing, but it definitely has a grasp on the entire world and the things that we're doing. But there is somewhat of a hope on the horizon. Is it a hope for everyone? No. There's no doubt corona is here to stay. It is a new virus added to the other viruses that we've had. We fought many of them throughout time. We've beaten many of them. Sure, there's vaccines for measles. There's vaccines for mumps, polio, tuberculosis, but TB is you still have that out there. It doesn't go away. We just learn how to fight it better. And that's what we're really trying to do. And in a world that's struggling with small businesses closing left and right and trying to hold on to that glimmer that the state policies and procedures will ease up and they can get back to doing what they do best and a comfortable general public, that's still a long haul. We still might be a year away from that type of comfort level with people who are out there. So nothing's easy about this. I read something the other day that said, and I'm trying to remember what the article was, but they said there are a lot of Americans doing the best they ever have. There are some Americans that are doing just fine, and there are some Americans that are just barely can make ends meet, and they're starving and they're not eating. And that's a tough thing to swallow, because you have certain parts of the general public that are like, no big deal. And then you have other parts of the general public going, I can't work because some company downsized 15,000 people, or they furloughed 10,000 people, and they got no intentions of bringing me back.
Yeah.
And even worse, some of them found out that they didn't even need me. So now I'm never coming back. And now COVID's a very polite excuse as to why they're not coming back, when in reality, it was the operation that's been faulty the entire time. And someone finally figured out that maybe we should, fine tune this a little bit. And you result in having all of these unemployment claims.
Well, now they're cutting salaries. I've talked to several people that work for some major corporations where their salaries have been cut as much as 15 to 20%. And then I just saw on the news the other day where in the city of Dallas, they're wanting to cut salaries from anybody making 60,000 up and above to help close that shortfall from all the revenue loss from COVID.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I have such a I got to be careful because I'm on live, so I got to be careful when I hear something that eats at me. There's no love lost between me and corporate. In fact, this show is based off of not just real estate, but entrepreneurship and digging yourself away from corporate. And I'll never steer away from that. I still think that's the American dream, to get away from corporate and work for yourself. That's what I built my business off of. That's what you guys have built your business off of. So it's been well documented. I can't stand the corporate world and their policies. But I got to tell you, if that's the route they're about to start taking, in my opinion, and I said my opinion, that's always important legally because you don't want to state factual because it's not. But in my opinion, if those guys are going to start leveraging off of Corona to fix their past evils, I hope they get what's coming to them. Because it sounds to me like they're prepared to hold the American public hostage to Corona. Right. What they're basically going to do is say, hey, you be fortunate that you can still work, but you're going to work at $20,000 less, which is what they wanted to do for years now.
Yep.
Yeah. And now they're starting to implement it. Again, I read some of those stories too, and that's probably the first time I've commented on it. But I got to tell you, if that's the route they're about to take, I sure hope karma at some point catches up with them, because that's about as sick as it gets to use the virus as an excuse to fix the ill wills of 10 to 15 years of poor management. It is the foundation of corporations. It's exactly what they do. You pay someone a ridiculous amount of money who they say is smart. They say they've done this before, and what they've done before is destroy the other company that they were at. That's what I always find interesting about corporation. See, now y'all got me off. I'm back in the original spiel of this show, which is great because it should be on here. You pay someone an excessive amount of money, and then they flush that company down the toilet. And then what's amazing is they work for another one 2 years later after they took the severance package of millions of dollars. Now they're working for someone else who they're going to go ahead and screw them up too, because obviously they couldn't fix it the last time, and yet they're deemed a genius. Yep. They're deemed, this guy's smart. Yeah, he's smart, all right, or she's smart. They know how to flush it down the toilet. They've been trained in how to do that, and it seems like that continues to be a repeat. Anybody thinks that I'm going off the chain here, or I'm not sticking to the subject, you're full of it. You're not paying attention. The whole drive of our show from a real estate platform, which is what we use, is to encourage people to get out of corporate. We just choose the real estate form because that's the one we know best. But nothing has changed from the original format when this show started almost 2 years ago. We're about to have our 2-year anniversary. Nothing has stopped the belief that corporations are rough to deal with. I'm not saying all corporations. I'm sure some of you work for good ones. But if you had to take a poll, I'm sure that poll wouldn't go very well with how the corporation is viewed. And that comment you just made, I got a feeling we're going to start seeing more of that. It's not just job loss, it's coercion. It's coercion to threatening someone, well, you can either take this or leave. And then they're acting like they're doing them a favor. It's a sick world, literally. Sick mentally, sick physically.
And it's another excuse for them to get rid of people who they should have gotten rid of a long time ago, but were afraid to do it. And now they're using that, that's an open door. It's like, let's just move them out. yeah, it's disturbing. It really is. I have to some days just turn the news off, because
and it's hard. It's a dual-edged sword because you have to watch the news to some extent to stay abreast as to what's going on, but then you have to filter yourself. I'm just not so sure that's correct. I mean, like polls, for instance, there are so many polls that I'll sit there and I'm like, I don't know the accuracy of this poll. I mean, who were the people they talked to? How many people did they talk to? Where did they talk to them at? The United States is very multicultural, spread across. It's a huge melting pot. And if you go to one area and get one view, that's not representative of the entire country. So what poll are we looking at? Who is it that's saying those things? It's very hard to decipher, what goes on the news, because some of it is factual. It's sad when you have to say some of it is, like it's an afterthought. But some of it is factual. There's important information that goes through there. But, David's right. At times it makes you wonder, well, I'm just not going to listen. I'm not going to listen to you. I'm not going to listen to what you say. I don't believe it. There's nothing you can say to make me believe it. So it just puts us in a situation at where do we look to find factual information? Where is factual information these days? So, okay. We do talk about COVID. Like I said, it does direct what we're doing. In fact, the conversation we're having today is affected by COVID, which is why we opened up the show with an update as to what COVID is doing. We are talking about new construction today. Fun conversation. A lot of times on the show, we have more serious conversations. We're directly dealing with legal issues. But today, we're going to talk about the concepts of new construction, because in the end, the general public is a little confused about how to deal with new construction. So this is a great show today for everyone, for new agents, for the general public, for people who are actually starting to think about doing this, for the agents who have clients that are starting to think about doing this, for pre-existing agents to make sure that they're kind of consistent with how somebody else looks at it. Not that my way is right. I like to think it is, but it doesn't mean it is. And I have a lot of people who are a lot smarter than I am that do this and that are better at it than I am. So it's always an opinion as to what the right way is. But I've done it long enough that I think stuff we're going to tell you is very good advice on how to handle new construction. So for anybody that's out there today that's watching, and especially the amount of archives, we have a lot of people that watch the show throughout the week. It's not as much live as it is archive, which I really appreciate. I love the viewership. We have continued to skyrocket. I saw we hit 700 the other day on one of the shows. It means a lot of people are going back and watching it, which means it's useful, and that's the whole point of the show. So we can break up new construction in a couple ways. We can discuss let's do it from the client perspective first. When a client starts a conversation that I want a new home. So let's talk about the routes that they have. In fact, I shouldn't have to talk as much. You guys know this as much as I do. David, let's start off with you. What's the first thing a buyer can do? And talk about on their own. What can they do if they wanted to go look at new construction?
Well, first and foremost, you can go look at new homes on your own. If you're a consumer out there wanting to purchase a new home, you can absolutely go and tour those homes. You can talk to the salespeople all day long. Yes, you can absolutely do that. Is it recommended? No, but you can certainly. I tell people, look, you can do that on your own, but I would highly recommend you have a realtor representing you, and you need to let them know that when you go look at those homes.
Yeah, that is an outstanding response. In fact, that's exactly what I wanted to hear, because you said it perfectly. They have the right to go look for homes. In fact, they think that they should do that on their own to go out and look at them, but it's not advised. No. It's not. And we're going to talk a lot about this in the next 45 minutes or so, or next 30 minutes, sorry, about why is it that somebody should go with them to those things? Because we've talked about this throughout the years, and it's not a shot at the general public. It's a fact. A majority of the general public just does not understand real estate. A majority of the general public thinks they understand real estate and thinks they're more capable of doing it on their own and brags about the things that they do. There's nothing more entertaining when someone brags about something they did in real estate when they actually screwed up, but they don't even know any better, and they're bragging about something they messed up. That's really embarrassing. And I can tell you 99% of the conversations I have with someone who did that on their own that does not have expertise in real estate screwed it up. Okay.
Well, and on a personal note, I bought my very first home this was back in 2002. Okay. I had never done that on my own. So I did a little bit of research, talked to some friends and some family members, but I basically just took it upon myself to go look, and I talked to different builders. But honestly, I really didn't know what I was doing. I didn't even know I could hire a realtor to go with me.
Right.
And they were the salespeople were very nice, but they were throwing out terms that I wasn't familiar with. I didn't know that I could hire a realtor. I didn't know I could have that home inspected.
Yeah, it's not like they just go out of their way to advertise, saying, "Hey, you should go get somebody. We're going to go ahead and pay them." Yeah. Now I want to talk.
Go
ahead.
Well, and I think I did okay. I mean, based on what the research I did, and I talked to different builders. But in the end, I really don't know how great I did.
Yeah, he didn't. He didn't do well. He messed something up, I guarantee you. So we talked about this stuff about the builder not necessarily advertising. You should go get help. Okay, so let's start with that conversation. Let's start about the setup with the new builder. Okay, the new builder has an ISA. That's what we call an inside sales associate. That person works for the builder. Okay, they're supposed to represent the builder. They do not represent you. They're not your agent. They're not your you're not their client. They represent the builder. Plain and simple. Okay, that alone should be a bell ringing off in your head that they're not doing this for my benefit. They're doing it for theirs. They'll act like they're doing it for your benefit, calling you their customer and all that stuff, but they're not.
Yeah,
they're in the business of making money, and they're going to make as much money as they can. They are not in the business of saying, "Oh, that's okay if we lose $5,000, not a problem." They wouldn't be in business that long if that was the case. Okay, so that's the setup in the actual builder. Any builder that you go into, especially the mainstream ones that you walk in, there's going to be a sales associate there. They're going to immediately greet you. They're going to start talking about everything they have, and they're going to want to show you houses. And of course, they're going to want to sell you a house. Okay. Now, the reason why they don't advertise a real estate agent is the mere common sense fact that if they don't have to advertise it and they can sell the house on their own, then that's good business sense, right? It's better business sense to go ahead and sell the house without having to pay a commission to the agent. Nobody would argue that. Now, whether that's right or not, ethically or morally, that's another conversation. Yeah, it's my opinion. Of course, I'm biased towards it because I'm on the other side of it. But it's my opinion that the builder should have to disclose, "Hey, look, just so you know, it probably wouldn't hurt if you had someone helping you out with this." But they won't do that. They should, but they don't.
And they don't even ask a lot of the times. They don't even ask you.
And a lot of times they're hoping that you're not. Okay.
That's right.
Now I want to talk about this too. This is more on the realtor side. Actually, it's both. It's the realtor and the client side. Sometimes a client or a customer will get the opinion that if they don't use the realtor, they're going to save cost on their house. All right. A majority of the time, that is not true. It is true on certain locations. There are certain builders that will cut the price of the house, but they are few and far between, and they are typically not the ones that you see as the big names. And I'm going to stay away from names today. You guys do too. But the big ones that are out there, these people are typically wanting real estate agents in. They want us to go in. They know that their best advertising is through us because we're the ones with the people. Yes, people walk in on their own, but it's highly more probable that someone who's a real estate agent will take that person into the home themselves. Let's talk about relocation people. Let's say somebody's coming in from Atlanta today and they don't know anything about Dallas. they're probably not going to go randomly drive around looking for places and then pull into a model themselves. They don't even know where the damn model is. They don't even know where to go. From a relocation standpoint, you better believe it's typically going to be a realtor that drives that person to the builder. The builders, most of them want us in there. They want us to go. Now, here's the other part of this that you have to understand. I told you some people get the opinion that, well, if I cut the realtor out, I'll save like $10,000 or $15,000. Most builders, especially like I said, the ones that you see out there, the big name ones that have most of the houses, the new builds that are startups are going through them. Most of them have a separate account that realtors are paid out of. It's a corporate decision.
Usually
they know that this is going to be an expense. It's a marketing expense, right?
Yeah.
And they know that this is going to have to be paid. And it does not come from the bottom line of that house. In fact, it has nothing to even do with the house.
Nope.
It's a marketing expense.
Sure.
Okay. Now, I'm not saying every builder out there. There are some builders that will say, no, that does affect the bottom line. But the majority of them, that is not a true statement. Now, this should be good for both sides, the general public and the real estate agent. It's good for the general public because those of you out there who are watching, or your agent forwarded you to watch this show, which a lot of you agents should, those of you that had that understanding, now you should be of the opinion, well, if that's not true, then why don't I go get a real estate agent? What do I have to lose? Right? That's the attitude that you should have. And then from the real estate side of it, when you get this objection from this person, say, well, why do I use you? You're not going to do anything anyways. So why would I use you? You immediately pop in. Why wouldn't you? It's not going to cost you anything anyways, for the most part. It'd be foolish not to use me. Right. Even if you don't use me very much, you still should have me there. Okay. You still should want me to be there because maybe I've seen a time or two over the amount of years I've been doing this. So why would you not want me to be in there? So that's a really good setup for this conversation as far as the ISA goes. That person, they don't work for you. I'm not saying they're not nice. I'm not saying that they're not going to go out of the way to do the best they can and help you. But in the end, they don't work for you. That's not disputable, by the way. They work for a builder. If you ever want to tell yourself as a client or your agent or whoever, the bottom line is they work for somebody else. And that should be a big warning sign to you. That should mean not necessarily that you're in harm's way, but you definitely might have some issues. Yeah. Were you going to say something?
No, that was David.
Well, and another, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Brent.
No, he's waiting on you. Go ahead, David.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. So another benefit, though, it's not just about buying that house today. It's about developing that relationship. You may use me for this purchase, but guess what? In a few years, you might be moving. You might want to upgrade that house, or you might want to downsize that house. Well, you've already got a realtor in your back pocket. I can be your long trusted realtor over the years. I can help you with comps. I can help you with a lot of different things. It's not just a one-time event. And I think that's where some people, it's like having a financial planner, right? You don't just talk to them one time and that's it.
So that's a good point. I want to bring that in because that's a core concept. We talk about giving takeaways on the show. So I'm going to go back to the gratification or the elevated status of being a real estate agent. Okay. It is a privilege to be a real estate agent, especially a good one. And I'm going to tell you why. When you're out there socially talking to somebody, especially if you don't know them very well, maybe you're mingling or you're networking or whatever, the number one person they typically want to hear from is someone like us. Mm-hmm. The Warren Buffetts of the world, the Mark Cubans of the world, they don't care who it is. If it's a real estate agent that's done it for a while, they're going to listen to what they have to say. Those guys, as wealthy as they are and as smart as they are, that's not their expertise. Sure. By the way, most of their wealth came from someone who did have that expertise that they listened to. So when you're out there and you're talking to somebody, if you want to, I'm really big on contributing. I want to make sure my day contributes to something. Every day I rate myself as far as how productive was I. Okay, my productivity is high. I want to be able to help people. I want to be able to give them the things that they need. I don't want them just to listen to what I have to say because they were doing it as a favor. Most people who listen to someone like me, meaning a real estate agent, they're listening because they want to know what's right and wrong about a huge expense and asset and investment, all of those categories. They want to know ins and outs. So we are deemed important in those conversations. There is a status level of being a real estate agent. There is a responsibility that comes with it, and it's wanted. Okay, so this is a good part of the show to understand why you don't just do those things on your own. And where that sparked off was David talking about, you don't treat your financial planner like that. You don't just go off on your own and do it. You certainly don't tell your heart doctor what to do, your diabetes doctor, your allergy. You don't tell those people what to do.
Well,
because you don't know. It's the same thing. It's just a different field.
Right.
Okay.
I
So
would say there's so many agents that do just do the transaction and never reach out again. So they do have that connotation.
Right. Well, make no mistake. I talk about the pride of being a real estate agent. There's a ton of bad ones too.
Well, just think of just among the three of us, how many times have you been asked in the last 6 months, how's the real estate market? How's COVID affecting the real estate market? I get that asked everywhere I go.
Yeah, it's daily for me.
Yeah. I mean, it's at the doctor's office. It's at the grocery store. If they say my name badge, they'll say, "Oh, you're a realtor. How's the market? How's this going to affect it?" So they may not always use us on a day-to-day basis, but like you said, Robert, they go to us. They're going to come to us because that's the biggest asset most people own.
Yeah. Let me bring something else into this conversation that's important as well. So this can be surprising for a lot of you. A lot of people are always interested when I talk about this because it's a spiel they haven't heard before, and it's unique. So this is good for the general public. So like if any agent that forwarded this to your buyer and you're trying to educate them on the process, this is good for that individual. And if you're the agent, it's good to be able to understand this objection when you get it because it's a true statement. Yes, we don't do probably as much as we normally do on a regular deal. Just to the mere fact that we're not the ones that typically do the paperwork, okay? Just focus on that alone. That takes a lot of stuff and a lot of expertise that we do. We don't do that in the new build. Because there is an ISA there, an inside salesperson, we don't have to go to every event. We don't have to go through some of the less important, notice how I said that, builder meetings. So it is easier on us. A lot of clients go through the process and they recognize that. And we were there for their contract. We got the contract signed. We maybe had 2 or 3 more meetings throughout the time frame. Then the house closed and we got paid like $10,000. So sometimes you'll have a client go, "You sure didn't do very much for that $10,000." Okay, this comes up every once in a while, right? So there's 2 parts to that conversation.
They say it with a smile too.
Yeah. The first one is sometimes they forgot that we spent 3 months showing them hundreds of houses before we got to that point. They just conveniently forget that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was easier during the new build process, but what about all the afternoons that we wasted because you guys couldn't get together on something and then we eventually had to do this? Right? That's the first one. Okay. Right. And the second one's the bigger surprise. And it makes a lot of sense if you think about it, but you kind of have to process it through and you have to have done this for a long time to understand it. You're going to be surprised by the fact when I tell you this, but anytime somebody tells me that I didn't work that much for that type of money, and they initiate the fact that I'm fortunate because of them, you got it all wrong. All right, there's a couple things you need to understand. One, I'm not getting paid by that builder because of you. You might think I am because it's your deal. But in reality, I'm being paid because I brought probably 100 to 200 previous clients into that builder, and they know I drive business into that builder. That is what they're paying me for. They're not paying me just because you decided to put my name down. And for the other thing on that same conversation, you weren't the one who paid for it anyways.
That's right.
So why does the question come up? Why is it human nature for someone just to, do they want to dig at you? I love it when someone wants to dig at me, the guy that helped them. Is it that somebody else told them and now they're listening to that person like they're the expert?
Right.
Where does this come from? Because in the end, it's a fact. You're not the one who paid me. Okay. And two, that builder is more paying me for previous work than the current one.
Well, and they also conveniently forget that you use your expertise to put them into that community, which saved them $50,000 over another one.
Yeah.
So,
why did we go there? Yeah. Did we have success there? Did we like that builder better? There's thousands of reasons why. Now,
well, and maybe,
go ahead.
Yeah. And maybe you did make 10 grand off that, but maybe I saved you 20 off the cost of that house.
That's right.
Like Brent said, and I got you into this neighborhood, a brand new community that checks all the boxes that you were looking for.
And we're going to talk about that the next 10 or 15 minutes as to some of those advantages that we can do. I just want to make sure that we have the setting right now.
Yeah.
That as far as the money goes, that should not be the concern to the buyer. They should be concerned that they have the maximum amount of people watching out for them as they do this.
And another thing here. And correct me if I'm wrong, Robert, you've been in this business a lot longer than I have. But I think also, too, many times, it's very visible what we do. And not everybody knows how much we make or what commission we make, because it's negotiable, right? But people have this idea of what we make and for what we do. And maybe the client that you're working with is an engineer at Microsoft. Well, we don't know what they make. We don't know what kind of a bonus they got. So nobody's going to question them. Well, what did you do to earn that bonus?
Right.
They don't. We're a lot more visible in a lot of ways than other professions are. So they don't get questioned like we do.
It's because people are more comfortable that they're capable of walking into a house, but they're not capable of walking into a surgery room.
Right.
First of all, they can't get into it anyways, but they have the access like we do, which makes them think that it's the same thing, and it's not. Okay. So the bottom line here, and it's not biased because we're in the industry, it's pure common sense for everything that we've told you. You want a real estate agent when you go into the new construction. All these other objections and all this other stuff, that needs to be thrown, that you need to push that aside. That is not what you should be focusing in on. You should have the maximum amount of help, and you should have it for someone you trust that is going to do the things that they need to do for you to make sure that this is a perfect transaction, because the builders, trust me, are less than perfect. And at some point, you are going to need the help. Now, this is a good transition into how it is that we can help, okay? And before I forget, because I know I'm going to roll too quick because we're already, about another 15 minutes for the show. Always want to make sure that we thank our sponsor out there, Martin Cooley. We're very fortunate. We have lots of great vendors that we work with. We always give our clients at least 3 alternatives because we never want to say you should use only this person. But like I always say on the show, I'd be lying if I didn't tell that particular individual, here are the choices. You should call all of them. But I'm telling you right now, this guy's been serving our particular firm for the longest time, and we've never had an incident. Martin Cooley at BPG Inspection. His information is down below. Probably the most solid inspector that I know out there, and I've got a lot of inspector friends who are good friends and love each of them. But this guy has been very consistent for us. Great bedside manner, tells it like it is, doesn't scare the client, doesn't do. You have a lot of inspectors out there that every single item they put seek professional help, seek a structural engineer, seek a plumber. I'm like, why the hell did I even bring you out here? Then why didn't I just bring those guys out here? Martin's not like that. He puts what the state tells him to, and then he clarifies the importance level of it. And that is what we are looking for. That's the type of individual we're working for. So very fortunate. The SWR firm is a large group in the Keller Williams environment. A lot of our agents use them. We continue to push that information to a lot of folks out there. So great guy, his information on bottom, BPG Inspections. That they won't do you wrong, especially if you're a real estate agent out there, or even if you're someone in the general public looking for a home inspector. That information is going to be very valuable for you. All right, let's talk about what it is, how we can help. And I'm going to take this in two forms here, and I'm going to do it from the realtor's eyes first, as far as negotiating, and then I'm going to do it from the consumer, what we can do for them. Okay, this is the most important part of the show for a new agent, or even one that's probably been doing it for 3 to 5 years or so. This is an important piece. This will be well worth the watch, because this is something I've perfected over the years, and it's never proven me wrong if I initiate the negotiation this way. Okay, so 2 types of new construction deals. One, you have what we call a spec home or an inventory home. It's already built, it's finished, it's sitting. They're paying on it, and they're waiting to get somebody in there. All right. Common sense should dictate they probably have more room on that one than building a stick one from the ground up, right? Okay, because it's sitting there and they don't have anybody. And every month that goes by, every day that goes by, they're paying interest on it. So they want to get rid of that house. Most of the time, there's probably going to be a lot more room on that type of house. If you're building from the ground up, I got to give my kudos to the builders, because they've become smarter over the years. They got tired of people going back and forth with them, trying to negotiate with them when they built a house. So somewhere along the line, somebody said, you know what, let's just do a base price on this house and say, this is basically the guts of the house. You tell us what you want to put in it, and we'll just add that to the price. And the brilliance there is it kind of gets away from what kind of deal you're going to cut me. Because you're like, I'll cut you whatever deal you want me to. You just tell me what you want me to put in, and I'll put it in there. If you want more, I'll put more. If you want less, I'll put less. So it kind of took the negotiation side out of building from the stick up. And here's the thing. When you're an agent and somebody asks you to go help them with the new construction up, I wouldn't shy away from the fact that we're only going to be able to do so much from a negotiation standpoint when we do that. In fact, the only negotiations I really know of these days, and I'm not speaking for everything, and there'll be some brokers out there say, well, I've done it before, and that's fine. But in my experience, the amount of agents that I have, most of them, when they ask, hey, look, can we get the price knocked down on building from the ground up? The builders are going to say, well, what do you want me to knock down? You haven't even put anything into it yet. So just tell me what you want to put into it. And then once you do that, then the conversation becomes, well, can you cut that? You're like, well, why do you want me to cut it? Why? You're the one who put that stuff in there. You knew how much it cost. I mean, what is it that we're doing here? Most of the time on a sticks up, I mean, basically from the ground up type of build, the best negotiation we're probably going to be able to do is probably to see if we can get them some additional upgrade allowances at the design center. When you go to the design center, the builder typically has 5 levels of what you can choose from. Obviously, level 1 is the standard, and you go all the way up to level 5, which is the most expensive. Now, here's where I'll integrate the first part of the show so it flows naturally. When you talk about needing a real estate agent for new construction, I'm going to tell you right now, the number one reason you need a realtor when it comes to new construction is so that they help in that design center. You have no idea what you're about to get into when you go into that design center. You literally could have signed a contract for a $250,000 home that within 2 hours, by the time you're out of that design center, you just made $325,000. I see it every day. There is no buyer that I know that ever goes into the design center and hits their budget. They are always over budget. And the catch is, how far did they go? So I'm going to give you some advice there too. When you're in the design center and you know the financial status of your client and where they're trying to be and what they're trying to stay, you want to give them leeway and you want them to get the things that they want, but you also want to caution them. For instance, carpet's a good one. There's 5 levels of carpet. You have the standard carpet, and then it goes up 2, 3, 4, and 5. 5 being the most expensive. I'm going to tell you right now, the difference between level 3 and level 5, most people never see. I would even argue from level 2, they might not see. Are you really prepared to add an extra $5,000 onto the cost of your house because the highest level was X amount and it absolutely changed the look of your house? That's not going to change the look of your house. I guarantee you most people wouldn't be able to tell. In fact, the only time I can ever even tell, it's not the carpet, it's the mat. The mat's the only time you can tell if someone has really nice carpet or not, because that's where it gets expensive, is when they price those thick mats in there. But that's a good example. If it's me, and by the way, anybody who watches our show consistently, you should already know the answer to this. We're consistent with the advice that we give when we go in there. We prep that buyer before we walk in there. We tell them what we're going to do. We tell them what we're going to do when we're in there, so that there's no surprise. Because it basically comes down to this. If it's something structural, we're probably going to let the builder do it, because it's not a good idea to have someone come in after and do a structure. But if it's more cosmetic, you probably should have a hesitation before you make the builder do it. Here's another good tip. A lot of good takeaways in this small little segment here. Hardwoods. Yeah, everybody wants hardwoods, right? It's a staple. Most builders will give you 1, maybe 2 rooms, or maybe 1 room in the hallway with hardwood. But after that, you're on your own. I'm going to tell you right now, I say that a lot in this particular show, because I am going to tell you right now. Wood, they're probably marking that up about 30 to 40% than what you would have paid if you went and got somebody to do it.
But to be fair, though, it's hard to do it afterwards, as far as, because a lot of times they have to use that thin concrete and level it out. So you have to see, is it that big of a pain in the ass, or would you rather just have it done?
That's where you have to look at it. You have to judge what is the cost factor here. What is the granite, for instance? You're probably paying 30 to 40% more for granite via the new builder. Is it a pain in the ass to have someone come in after and take the cheap counter off and install a new one? Probably.
Remount the sink. Yep.
Yeah, but would it have saved you $3,000 or $4,000? Or maybe you're handy yourself. And a lot of people, God knows I'm not one of them, but there's a lot of people that are able to do those things themselves.
Well, another thing too is the agents. We have our expertise in helping you pick the lot too. Telling you, hey, that lot premium is worth it, or it's not. On resale, hey, that's going to really help you on resale. That won't. I mean, those are things that at the very beginning that were worth way more than we get paid.
Right. All right. And again, all of our conversations are like month conversations. We only do particular segments. That's why we do new construction once every 6 or 7 months. We have the show, and we just start over and do a different piece. I want to make sure I give you the other side of the negotiation, because that'll be a good full show. Because today you can walk away with why you need the agent, and 2, what are the 2 types of transactions that we're dealing with, and what is it that we can offer. That'd be a really good bundled show. So the last one is the inventory home. Okay, now the inventory home is where we might have some more potential for a bigger negotiation than a pre-existing home. There's no set rule in pre-existing. A lot of people watch the show across the country, so the states are different. In Texas, which is our primary viewing audience, it's most of the pre-existing homes right now, you're lucky if you get $5,000 to $10,000 off of them. Some of them you're paying more for. Okay, it's not the same on the new construction. Excuse me. The new construction is a little bit different, because that builder might have already built in some markup in there because they knew they were going to get negotiated. Okay, this is where we always like to laugh at. Well, not really, but we kind of do. The person that just walks into the new build and the spec home was $250 and they got it down to $240, and they go bragging to their friends, I didn't need no real estate agent. I just knocked that thing off $10,000. Whereas if I had walked in there, I could have got the house sold for $200,000. That's a fact sometimes, because that builder, depending on who they are, they know what you're probably wanting it for. They know what to say to get you to that point. So with that said, I'm going to give you some really good tips here. It's probably some of the best tips you're going to get when it comes to new construction. A great way to end the show.
And that just real quick, that's something that buyers will walk in and the sales agent says, "What's your budget?" And the buyer just tells them. So of course they're going to get right up to
just took the words right out of my mouth. That was tip number one. And that's why he runs this thing with me. And that's why David's on the show a lot too, because they know this. When you walk in to a new build, whether it's from the sticks up or a spec home, you tell that client when they're asked, what is your range? And they are going to be asked that. Your immediate response is, we're not sure yet. Because let me tell you, the moment you give them a range, you just positioned yourself and cornered yourself off, and that's what they're going to be looking at for you. Whereas you could have been in a much higher dollar house and got it down to that level. Don't you ever tell that builder what the range is. Okay, this is a good one for the new agents out there. It took me 5 years before I understood this. Okay, don't you ever tell them what the range is. You politely look, we're just not sure yet. The really good new builder salesperson, that'll be a good warning sign to them that you're experienced and that you know what you're doing, because they know anybody who answers that is much smarter than the average idiot that walks through there and says something stupid. Okay, that's the first one. Here's something else, and it doesn't work all the time. It's subtle, but it works more times than not. When you're ready to start negotiating on a spec home, remember, this is one that's already been built. First thing, you're going to show the buyer. You're never going to continue that conversation with the buyer going straight to the table to start talking negotiations. We don't want the buyer present when we start talking negotiations. So what we're going to do is we're going to finish the visit. We're going to thank the builder. We're going to look back at them and say, hey, I'm going to give you a shout a little bit later. I think this might be one that they want. Okay? And that's it. Get the buyer, square them off, call the builder a little bit later that day. Let's say the house is at $300,000. Okay? That's what it's listed at right now. Most of the time, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to say, hey, look, we originally didn't have this buyer anywhere near $300,000. In fact, their original price point and their original approval was at $225,000. Now they can approve for a lot more than that, but we really didn't want them there. However, we suggested that they come look at this house because it had a lot of what they wanted, and maybe there's a possibility that you guys were a bit higher than where you should be. So I don't want to waste anybody's time, but that's where we're at. I just need to know if there's some room in that thing or not, because if we're not anywhere close to that, we might as well just walk away. That builder, a salesperson, is going to do one of two things. All right. One, they're going to immediately say, well, look, we've been selling way too many of them, and we're not budging on the price, so it is what it is. Most of the time when a builder says that, rest assured that they're not moving much off of it. They're not playing you. They're flat out telling you. Because the second one, if they hesitate, meaning if they just look at you for a second and pause, and then they say, well, let me talk to my manager, that is almost a 99% guarantee that there is room in that house. Mm-hmm. And that there is opportunity to get that thing down. Now the key is, how low will they go?
Right. And they can say, oh, I can do 10,000, or you can write an offer and see if they'll take it. And that's usually a good
right.
thing.
That's an invitation for you to come in low.
Right.
It's not saying they're going to take it, but you made it clear to them that originally you guys weren't anywhere near that. You're kind of softening the blow that if you do decide to come in there, maybe at 265, the whole world is in shock. Now, it's changed over the years, but 10, 15 years ago, some of those builders, they padded those things by 50 to 100K. Mm-hmm. Today, not so much. They're closer, but you still can get them down 20 to 30,000, maybe even 50,000 on certain builders. Right?
Well, and I think also, especially right now, being in a seller's market like we are, I think there's this assumption out there that, oh, there's no way that I'm going to be able to get this house, at list or up below list, even if whether it's a pre-existing or a brand new home. And that's just not true, because some of these builders are willing to negotiate. And as we all know, a lot of sellers will accept offers below list price.
That's right.
Times, even in a seller market.
There's a lot more leeway in the build side. That's the key. Is that
Yes.
it might not be just 5 or 10,000. So the negotiation changes for the new
Yep.
agents out there. This is where you have to alter your persona. It changes. You have to be experienced enough to know what to say. I'm going to tell you right now, that last little 10 minutes, probably some of the most valuable information you'll get.
Yeah.
That took most of us years to figure out. It's not in the books. That's why I constantly brag about my guys being better than most out there. And that's a bold statement to make when you have the amount of brokers and the credible brokers that are out there. That's a bold statement to make, but it's true because those guys, they've been told that from day one. They don't wait to read it out of a book because it's not going to be in any book. They don't wait for someone to share it with them like in some type of class because they're not going to see it in some type of class. We teach the hardcore knocks of this business. We teach the nuts and the bolts. We don't polish them. We teach you how to do it. And that's what we do best. I want to thank everybody for watching the show today. Hopefully you got a lot out of that. That's really good information for the general public and for any type of real estate agent out there themselves, especially the new ones. Really do appreciate you guys watching the show. Continue to share it. Continue to push it out. You can always catch up with me. My email is super easy. It's smokerbroker@kw.com. Sometimes I don't put my number up there, but it's 214-683-8973. Again, that's 214-683-8973. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next week.